Since Imu has already overwhelmed Zoro and Sanji, and only Loki and Luffy remain as the only ones who could theoretically resist him, though realistically even they are probably not ready for this specific confrontation, they will somehow need to be rescued, and that could play out in various ways. So let's move on to the theory, where we'll also take clues from other popular anime into account, since many narrative patterns tend to repeat themselves, while also mentioning alternative possibilities in the process. First of all, Imu started bleeding the moment he appeared, which means his time in the outside world is limited, so at some point he will have to retreat back to the Holy Land on his own. On top of that, the Holy Land itself was under attack, although Garling claimed Shamrock has already dealt with it, but it's still possible the situation is not fully resolved or a new attack going down at any moment. In any case, Imu's power level is so overwhelming that the time he has available should still be enough to annihilate them all, meaning that once again some kind of miracle or unexpected event will be needed to delay him. The Elbaf arc is thematically based on Norse mythology, where the world tree Yggdrasil has Nidhogg trapped at the bottom, a dragon said to be released during Ragnarok. Nidhogg exchanged messages with an eagle at the top of Yggdrasil through a squirrel called Ratatosk. Since Loki is revealed to be Nidhogg, while his hammer, Ragnir, is actually Ratatosk, therefore, there should logically also be an eagle figure. I personally believe this could be Mosa, the mysterious person who spoke with Loki over the Den Den Mushi while he was imprisoned, despite the two of them never having seen each other. However, it's also possible that Mosa is actually Princess Shirahoshi, since Mosa is a known nickname associated with her. Still, there are reasons to doubt that as well, and Oda may simply want us to believe just that because he often plays with readers' expectations. Since in the myth Nidhogg communicates with the eagle, it would make perfect sense for Mosa to be that person. Additionally, Mosa means hairy or shaggy, which would fit the image of an ancient eagle quite well. Moreover, in Norse mythology, Asgard lies at the top of the world tree, where the gods reside, and I had theorized that the same would apply to the so-called Heaven Realm at the top of the Atom Tree in One Piece. Technically, this idea has not been disproven, but with the direction the story has taken, the so-called gods are more likely connected to the ancient giants trapped in ice, the very beings Rox D. Zebek considered necessary for his plan to overthrow Imu. What we know about them is that they were shipbuilders who wielded war hammers and were called Gali-La or Gali-Ra. In Japanese, the sounds for L and R are essentially interchangeable. The helmets of Norse gods are often decorated with feathers associated with eagles, while the Valkyries, who we would naturally expect to appear at some point in the series, were also Norse divine beings with bird-like characteristics. The Thanagarians from DC's Justice League similarly possessed avian traits and used the hawk as their symbol. The name Gali-Ra could also reference the Egyptian sun god Ra, who was depicted with hawk-like features. Therefore, these ancient giants may have been followers of the second world sun god, Joy Boy, and either kept the eagle as a sacred companion, or the eagle itself may have been one of them. Someone who died long ago and whose role was inherited by another figure in the modern era, much like Loki inherited the role of the god of war, who once was Nidhogg. Of course, an eagle is not exactly the same as a falcon like Ra is, but the precise species probably does not matter as much as the broader idea of a mythical giant bird, whether eagle, falcon, or even condor, which is another strong possibility. I believe a condor devil fruit should exist in One Piece, since the condor was worshipped as a divine being by the Nazca people of Peru. Moreover, in actual Norse mythology there are in fact two eagles at the top of the tree. One is Hraesvelgr, who is actually a giant capable of transforming into an eagle, something extremely fitting for One Piece. The other eagle, the one communicating with Nidhogg, is unnamed. However, there is also a hawk called Verfilnir sitting in between the unnamed eagle's eyes, which enhances the hawk connection. This also ties interestingly into Alabasta, where Pell, who transformed into a falcon, seemingly sacrificed himself by flying high into the sky while carrying the bomb that would have obliterated everyone, yet somehow survived the explosion, which was always extremely suspicious. There is also Rob Lucci, who despite being a government agent was a member of the modern Gali-La shipwrights, who likely have some connection to the ancient ones. He is always accompanied by a pigeon, much like a member of the ancient Gali-Ra may once have been accompanied by the eagle. In Digimon Frontier, during the desperate battle against Lusamon, Koichi Kimura sacrificed himself for his friends, and one of the Digimon he used was Velgemon, which is based on the eagle Hraesvelgr mentioned earlier. I have already explained the similarities between Emu and Lusamon in a previous video, and those parallels continue to grow stronger, especially since Emu recently explained his philosophy, which completely aligns with that of Lusamon Fall Down mode. But more importantly, let's look at the first season of Digimon. There, Vampdemon, a demonic vampire who remained hidden in the shadows for many episodes, eventually appeared and proved overwhelmingly powerful for the heroes, much like Emu. However, Birdramon evolved into Garudamon for the first time, becoming strong enough to delay Vampdemon for a short while and allow the others to escape. And that is exactly what I believe will happen in One Piece. The eagle will obviously not defeat Emu, but it will appear at a critical moment to help everyone escape. The name Garudamon comes from Garuda, a Hindu deity resembling a solar eagle, considered the king of birds and the mount of the god Vishnu, who fights injustice and destroys evil. In some myths, Garuda is described as being so enormous that he can block out the sun itself. Given that one of the Norse eagles is unnamed, it is possible that in One Piece this figure could be identified with Garuda, though that is not necessarily required. Garuda is depicted on the national emblems of both Indonesia and Thailand, and it is worth mentioning that the concept of an eagle guardian is extremely common in popular fictional series. In Fairy Tail, for example, there is a guardian eagle, while in Marvel Comics there is the global security organization S.H.I.E.L.D., whose emblem is an eagle. In Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Earth Protection Force also rocked the eagle as emblem. And of course, the Byzantine symbol of the double-headed eagle could also be relevant here, both because, as mentioned earlier, there are actually two eagles in the myth, and because of the Byzantine influences in One Piece, which I will discuss in future videos. A reasonable question is this. If such an important mythical creature exists, why does it not appear in Harley's mural alongside the other beasts? Here are some possible explanations. First, perhaps not every important figure is included in the mural, so that some surprises can remain intact. However, notice a specific giant fighting on the front lines beside Luffy and Loki. He could potentially be the one capable of transforming into the eagle. Furthermore, the mural depicts the final battle, and by that point the eagle may have already died through self-sacrifice. In a previous video, I theorized that the eagle could even be connected to the ancient weapon Uranus, for various reasons. Such as the fact that legendary birds like Lugia from Pokemon or Wiracocha Rasca from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5DS possess similarly devastating levels of power. However, in the case of One Piece, that theory probably will not turn out to be true. So the eagle could instead be located at the top of the tree, at the Heaven Realm, about which we still know absolutely nothing. There are also some suspicious elders who had the authority to decide whom King Harold would marry, and since then we have heard nothing more about them, which is odd. They are likely connected to the eagle. If the eagle truly is Mosa, then this would fit with Mosa telling Loki that they were dealing with some issues, which may explain why they have not appeared yet. Beyond that, some people have theorized that this eagle might actually be Shank's sword, which may have eaten an eagle devil fruit. Though in that case, we would technically not be talking about an eagle but rather a griffin, a combination of eagle and lion. This is because his sword is called Griffin, and we have seen an energy griffin appear when he attacks with it. Meanwhile, his brother Shamrock's sword uses a Cerberus mythical Zoan ability, so it would make perfect sense for Shank's sword to possess a similar kind of power. It has also been stated that Shanks was the only one capable of bringing Loki down, and with Loki freed everyone understands what an incredible achievement that actually is. Some still doubt that Shanks managed to subdue him fair and square, but considering that Skoppergaban, the left-hand man of the Pirate King, said it very seriously, I doubt it was either a lie or an exaggeration. Furthermore, Shanks, as Luffy's idol who is inevitably destined to clash with him, must possess monstrous strength. Yet so far, the only thing we have truly seen from him is his overwhelming haki, and it is questionable whether haki alone would be sufficient. The ability to ride a mythical flying creature would certainly elevate his game and could partially explain how he managed to stand against the colossal Nidhogg. Even so, although his sword may indeed possess such an ability, Norse mythology specifically mentions an eagle, not a griffin, and I doubt Shanks himself will appear here since he declared that he is now going after the One Piece. Still, one interesting detail worth mentioning is that in World of Warcraft, the griffin is depicted carrying a Norse-style warrior wielding a hammer, much like the ancient giant Galli-Ra figures would. Therefore, it is entirely possible that in the modern era the eagle actually is Shanks, especially considering his rivalry with Loki, since in the original myth Nidhogg and the eagle are hostile toward one another. The connection of One Piece with World of Warcraft has been solidified ever since I pointed out the similarities between Loki and Illidan, even predicting that Loki would have wings on his back in his hybrid form, something yet to be seen but is most likely the case. Others believe that Monkey D. Dragon will be the one to save the day, and to be fair, this would certainly be a good moment for him to finally take action. Still, I insist that, for now, a gigantic bird is the one that will perform the miracle. And likely nobody knows what's going at Elbaf right now, so the savior should probably be located nearby, and the heaven realm on top of where the battle ensues is the perfect location. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more.
Come on, everyone, climb on!
Next time you won't escape!